So guys, now let's start about split, join and replace string methods. So first let's start with a replace. So let's say we have a string ABCB, and here in this string I want to replace all the B's with two Z's. So it's really very easy with the help of replace method. So just apply this replace method after this. Then you provide two arguments. The first argument will be what you want to replace, and here we want to replace all the B's, and we want to replace all the B's with two Z's. And let's run the code. So do you see what we have got in return? In the returning string, all the B have been replaced with two Z's. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory what this replace method does. So now let's understand about this split method, because it is bit tricky, but it's pretty easy one. So let's say this is a word string, and let's assign this string to a variable as. So if we want to access, let's say, each word of this particular string, so yeah, we can do that. We can write down a for loop, and then we can take this particular space as a delimiter, and then we can write few lines of code to access the each word in this particular string. But with the help of split method, it's really easy to do that. So and like why it is like required, like, so let's say suppose you will run a for loop on this particular string to access each word. So what will happen? So do you see we are accessing each character, not each word here, because for loop runs on each item, and in a string each character is a item. And suppose let's say we have, let's say, a list which contains, let's say, these four words, let's say this, and then comma is, comma a, comma WORLD. And if you will run for loop on that particular, on this particular list, then what will happen? And let me delete this whole thing. Not required. Yeah. So do you see what's happened? So when we have ran the for loop on a list, we got the each word back. That means we can access each word individually in a for loop. But when we are applying the same thing, the same loop on a string, then we cannot access each word, because there is a no separation in a string, as each character is a item, whereas in a list items are separated with a comma. So what our split method does, it converts this uh, particular string into a list. So let's see that. So let me like copy this as, and let's apply the split method on it, and let's run it. So do you see what it has returned? So it has returned a list, and this list contains each word as a item. So if we'll run a for loop on this, so then we can access the each element individually. But thing is that how this has happened. So what does this split method does? It takes in a string as a space its delimiter. So it's look at the each space. So what it does, it starts its iteration from the leftmost side, and keep it, and goes up to as long as it's find a space, then put this whole word as its the first item, and then it goes for the next item after this space, and again it will check up to a new space, and then put this particular word as a new item in a list. Then again it will go ahead and look for a space, and then look for a new word and put this word over here, and it will find as a space, so it will start a new word as a new item in a list. So again it will put it as a fourth item. So that's how a split method works. But for now it's pretty okay, like, to apply this split method, and by default, like, this particular space is a by default. So even if you run this, you will get the same thing, because this is a by default space it takes as a delimiter. But you can change that. Suppose in case we have a string like this phone number, let me copy this string. So what will happen in this case, if you want to apply a split method on this particular phone number string, then you see we got in return only a list which contains only one item, whereas as we want to create the three items, as we want to access the each phone numbers individually from this particular string. So we can provide a argument where we can specify the delimiter, as here in these phone numbers the delimiter is a semicolon. And if you run this again, so now you can see the list what it has returned contains three phone numbers, because over here we have provided it is a delimiter. So the same thing has happened. It started a left to right search, its delimiter, and when it found a delimiter, just before that, that item will be, so that particular segment will be a item. Then it will again start a new search and look for a again the second delimiter. So now that will be the second item. Then again after that semicolon delimiter, it will again look for the last item and then put that last item its new item of this list, and because this is a last item of a iterator, so that search will be stopped. That's how split method works. So now again we can easily now let's say p is equal to this one, and then we can run a for loop on this particular for I in p I. Let me run it, so because it wasn't in the memory, because I did not run it after that. So now you can see, now we can access individually the each phone numbers of this particular list. But now let's say now we have, let me copy the where I created this particular, let's say, yeah, let's say now let's copy this particular list. Now when I have this list, but now I want to convert back this list back to our string, then how can we do that? So we have a join method for that. So what does that join method does? First, we need to provide a delimiter to that join method. So here, as I want to keep these things as a separation with a space, so first I'll provide that space as a delimiter, then provide the join method, and then provide any iterable will be accepted over here. So over here, as this list is a iterable, so I have put this list over here. Now if you run, you can see now it has returned a string back. But if you will change this delimiter, so as per delimiter, what will happen? So let's provide a semicolon delimiter. Do you see? Now we got a string back, but here it was a delimiter. So what it does over here, it again iterate through on that particular iterable. So first it takes its first item, it put it over here, then again it looks for its delimiter, it places the delimiter, that goes for the second item, place the second item, then again place the delimiter, then again it goes for the third item, and after that third item place a delimiter, then again it goes for the next item word, and again, as this was a last item in that iterable, so then it stops its search over there. So that's how this join method works. Now let's take this task as a challenge and we'll solve it in a next part. So take this phone number string, and you can find this phone number string in this video description or video resources, and create a new string which contains only the last 4 digits of these phone numbers, and all of these phone numbers should be now separated with a comma. and you can solve that task again with a split join method, and you can apply a for loop also in that, and then you can apply indexing also. So with these four things you can resolve that particular task. Try to do by yourself. If you cannot solve it, then we will solve it in the next part. So thanks a lot guys for understanding this. So please keep watching this video and subscribe the channel. That will be huge support for me. So thanks a lot. Bye bye.